everyone. My name is Karina Sarah. I am very excited to have you all here for another edition of the Mayborn Mentor event. I'm going to hand it off to Trent Walters, who will introduce officially this event.
Hey, everybody. I'm Trent Walters. I'm with the Richards Group, and I am proud to be one of the board members of the UNT School of Journalism, the Mayborn School of Journalism. Graduated from there and back in 19 something or other.
Yep.
A little while ago. It's been a while. But excited to be part of this. I am on the education committee on our board, and so we're just responsible for helping students get connected with people in the actual industry, making sure that you guys have opportunities to hear from them, to learn from them, and make connections and hopefully grow and see what it's like to get take what you're learning in class and apply it in the real world. So I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to Neil, who's going to introduce our speaker for tonight. All right, Neil, turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Trent. Karina, thanks everyone for being here. Wende, Zomnir, thank you so much for being here. A Mayborn alum, UNT alum, and she has a wonderful story she's going to share with you, and we'll have plenty of time for your questions. It's great to see you again, Wende.
Good to see you, Neil. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, at the Mayborn School, we say your story starts here, and I guess I want to talk a little bit about your story. Learn a little bit about your journey, and then we're going to open it up to questions and comments and wherever else the road may lead. So,
okay.
That sound good to you?
It sounds good to me. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. So, the story starts here. Did you ever have it in the back of your mind that I'm going to leave UNT and start this global company?
I did not. No. I actually went to UNT. I was really excited that there was such a great journalism school there because, I thought I wanted to be, on CNN. And so that was really my goal. But then I also enjoyed the creative process so much. And one of the things I loved about Mayborn were there were so many different ways to get involved in communications, which is really what I think they teach you there is how to communicate. And I felt like I loved visual communication. I loved the selling part of, I know you guys still have the NT Daily, but when I was there, it was an actual real newspaper we published every single day. And I love that creative part of creating the advertising and helping the clients build their business. And so that really started to speak to me. And I think one of the greatest things about Mayborn is that we were able to jump into PR and jump into advertising and jump into writing and every single aspect of communication, which was so great. And I remember using Roy Busby's class in PR to actually go start Urban Decay. I was like, how am I going to do this? And I need a press kit. And I remember all the things I learned in that class, and I actually went and did those things, and it turned into a business that I got press and Vogue from it. So
are you suggesting that maybe some of the things us professors teach actually might be useful someday?
They are useful. They are useful, yes. But I even tell people, I digress, but I tell people that the Pythagorean theorem is useful. If you are building merchandising, you always want to use a squared plus b squared equals c squared because then you know how high you can go. So, just saying, Pythagorean theorem.
We may come back to that in a second.
Yeah, okay.
So you left journalism here, and then you went into advertising? Is that where you kind of began?
I did. So I actually had an amazing group of professors around me. When I was there, it was the first year of the Vance Stickel Memorial Internship, and they were offering 3 of them. And I remember so many professors saying, you have to apply for this. And I'm thinking, there's no way I'm ever going to get this. There's no way. And I had so many people behind me believing in me. I went ahead and applied, and I got it. And so there were 3 winners that year. I think they do more now. But it gave me a stipend, and it gave me an introduction to Leo Burnett, which is a big agency in Chicago. And at the time, you know, Leo Burnett, they hired, you know, Wharton MBAs for their account management program. And so this is a great entree for me to get into the advertising business. And I still had to do a journalism practicum and graduate. And I remember Sarah, who was the secretary for the journalism department, actually went through and registered for me so that I could stay in Chicago and accept the job. So I just feel like the department went above and beyond to really help me be successful and get a job in the industry and promote me and push me.
Yeah, here it is. You're at, you know, Leo Burnett. That's not bad coming right out of school, like you said, right? Major global firm. What was your impression those first few months? Was it what you expected?
It was, you know, I think most everyone who takes a job that right out of school, there might be compromises with what you want, right? And I remember one of the compromises I had was, and this was, you guys will think this is weird because you're young, but back then people could advertise cigarettes in magazines, and internationally could even be on TV. And so I got assigned to the Marlboro account, and I was very anti-smoking. It was very difficult for me. So that was my first big girl pants, you know, put on my big girl pants decision. Like, do I take the job and work on something I don't believe in? And I think it was a real learning experience for me. I never felt good about it. And so I just made sure that from that point on, I didn't really do things I didn't feel good about. But at least I feel like I got me in the door and it set me on a path. So sometimes I think there are those tough compromises you have to make right out of school. It's not always exactly what you want. I think, you know, people say, oh, you got to follow your dream. You got to follow what you believe in. And sometimes you get sidetracked a little bit. So, you know, just get back on the path, I guess is my point.
Get back on the path, and you're clearly working on Marlboro account. I mean, I'm curious, so how did you manage that? Did you end up working on the account, or did you decide it was time to look elsewhere?
I did work on the account, but I was able to push pretty hard to get moved off as fast as I could. So I took the job to get in because they needed help, and in that group, and that was the job I was offered. And then I tried to get moved as quickly as possible.
Well, and I think that there's so many lessons in that in terms of understanding your work environment and figure out where your passions are and where you could do your best. How did you translate that experience into your next opportunity?
Well, I think the good thing about that was there were big budgets for artwork, and there was just a lot of resources. So I was able to get exposed to a lot of different resources and people within the agency. And I think that's important. I mean, I'm sure Trent can speak to it from the Richards Group standpoint. Like, the more people you know within the agency, the more stuff you can get done. And I think that really helped me to be successful there and to get a next good assignment because there were so many resources and I had to go meet a lot of people. And, you know, I will say one thing, like back then we had to get videotapes made, duplicate tapes, right? There was no streaming. So we had to go get tapes made. And this is just an example of like a small thing for you guys, but I remember like I could get a tape out of that video department faster than anyone else, faster than any of those Harvard or Wharton MBAs. I was quick. And I did it through relationships, right? I could get my stuff to the front of the line. And those little tiny things, like that got me promoted to the next job. So don't forget, like, those little tiny weird skills get you to the next level. I mean, this also sounds crazy, but one of the things that I learned at UNT was they were really early on big into the Macintosh and big into Apple, right? And like teaching you to be your own graphic designer. And this is, you guys, this is 1989. This is a long time ago. That was pretty innovative at the time. I know you guys think it's just a given. This is innovative. This is when we had film in our cameras, right? Nothing digital, no cell phones. And I went to Leo Burnett. They were not so progressive, but there was one Apple on like the 6th floor that no one knew about. And when it came time to like make an emergency presentation over the weekend, I'm the intern and I'm the only one who can pull it off. Right. And if you, and I'm dealing with like C-suite level people who are having to get this over the weekend presentation done. And it was all because of a skill that I learned at the NT Daily advertising office. Right. So believe that it's going to be a different skill. Trust me. It's not going to be the fact that you can use Palatino type, you know, and like impress people with how good your presentation looks. It's going to be a different skill these days, but you are going to learn something, you know, at Mayborn that no one else can do. And if you figure out how to be in the right place at the right time to deliver that skill, you are going to go places. So it's just all about looking for those opportunities. Like, what do I know and how can I bring it? Like, just how do I connect the dots for people and make their lives easier, and you will get noticed.
I think that kind of at least three lessons in what you just told in that story, which was one, never burn bridges, right? Now you're on this Marlboro account, which you were like, oh my gosh, what the heck am I doing? You know, your natural reaction could have been, get me the heck off this account because I don't believe in cigarettes and take me the other way. But you used that to say, okay, what else can I do? You built relationships, which I think is so important, right? But not just relationships with your coworkers or the bosses, but everyone, right? Up and down the chain, I think is so important about what you're saying, because I think we all learn it's the little things, the secretary, the person who makes the tapes, the person who runs the errand, who can make the difference. So I think that's really invaluable. And then I think your third point there of find that skill and that opportunity where someone else may not be thinking about and take advantage of that. So you've got your Mac skills down, your presentation skills. That's still a long way from urban decay. So we get into the 90s. Where does makeup even fit into this? When did you discover that this was something that, well, advertising, maybe I love it, but that's not what I want to do. There's another calling.
Well, there was an account at Leo Burnett, and it was a makeup account. And I always wanted to work on it. I always loved makeup. It's always kind of been part of my thing. And I also knew in my heart I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like after I'd done a few years at the agency, I just felt like I wanted to create something on my own. And I moved to California to work in another agency. It was great. It was definitely more promotion focused. It was another different skill set I was learning. But I ended up meeting someone who also had the vision to start a makeup company. And I didn't really believe it could be done. Like I wasn't out there going, I'm going to start a makeup company. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was exploring a lot of different opportunities. And through, a connection that I had made in Chicago, I was introduced to someone else, and she had the means to support it. And basically was a great mentor to me to believe that I could do, do something that I didn't think was possible. And so that's really how the Urban Decay brand got started, was a meeting of people that just believed we could do it,
I think that's, you meet someone that you want to do, but you and your business partner began to really redefine and really take a different approach to beauty, right? It wasn't just, hey, we're going to come up with some lipstick and some eyeliner. You really set out to do something very different.
We did. I don't think back then you could have just started a makeup company that looked like every other makeup company. I mean, you have to imagine, I know you guys walk into Sephora, which didn't exist at the time in the US. And you see it's like the Technicolor dream of makeup, right? It's like whatever you want. It's like a candy store. Well, that didn't exist. And there wasn't really a place for small brands. All the brands were like big L'Oreal brands, Estee Lauder brands, Clinique. There were Coty, Shiseido. There were just big brands out there. And it seemed like this big, high, impenetrable fence. Like you couldn't get through it. And we were just like, well, we're just going to try to knock down the door of the cosmetics department. We're going to see what we can do. because our point of view on beauty was really different. We believed that beauty should be about self-expression. And back then, and that's a pretty normal point of view, marketing point of view from beauty companies today. But back then it was like, you have to look like this perfect, skinny, white, blonde, even featured woman to be considered beautiful. So most of us weren't pretty enough or white enough or skinny enough or feminine enough to be considered beautiful. That's what the standard was. And makeup was sold to you to try to achieve an ideal you could never, nor should you want to achieve. And so we took a different approach on that. And we were like, beauty and makeup should be about self-expression. It should be about showing the world who you are, not about what the world says you should want to look like. And you should never feel less than because you don't look like that, because that's not the only standard of beauty. And that was pretty crazy revolutionary. People thought we were out of our minds because we weren't using these perfect, sweet little models. Our first ad said, it was like this kind of, girl, and it said, "Does pink make you puke?" Right? Because everything was so pink and sugary. There wasn't an alternative. And I don't hate pink personally. It was just more of the idea of what pink stood for at the time. So, that was really the point of view we brought. So we brought a really different perspective to makeup. And I think our challenge was communicating that. And I used a lot of what I learned at North Texas to help communicate that kind of information through ads like, "Does pink make you puke?" We had one that said, "Burn, Barbie, burn." We got in trouble for that. But, we're small. And then, we really defined, what is the brand? We defined it as feminine, dangerous, and fun. And it was all of those things rolled up into one. And that was our litmus test for, is it Urban Decay? Is it feminine? Is it dangerous? Is it fun? And that has also evolved, right? Because now we no longer need to say it's feminine. We were like the first brand that came out and said, we're makeup for girls and boys who want to show the world who they are and put their own stamp on their look. And so we've been talking about gender neutral for a long time, but people wouldn't take us seriously as a beauty brand unless we had this like somewhat feminine aspect to it. But now we can kick that out, right? Because the world has changed. So I like to think that we help change how people view beauty. I think that's the big story. Not that we made this lip gloss.
No, which I think is significant because you talk about the democratization of beauty, and I think that's a very powerful statement. Certainly, given the time in which we live now, but certainly this is the '90s, and we're seeing some changes in culture. Then you talk a lot about kind of the initial kind of girl power movement that somewhat played into your thing that girls and women don't all look the same and have special needs. And I love the story you tell, and I'd love you to share that, how you began to try to get your initial products into the hands of some key people. This was before social media. We weren't tweeting. We weren't even texting. I mean, it was SMS before it was text, right?
Right.
None of that existed. So you had to be super creative to try to get your product into people, and you did some creative things to do that.
Yeah, I know. I feel like some of these stories, these guys are like, what are they talking about? And why is this relevant? Like, why was that so hard? But it was a really different world, So a couple of things we did was, it was like an early form of social media. So I had met these girls in New York who were, we called them it girls. They were just party girls. And so I would send them a box of makeup and cash. And they would like basically pass it out to their friends in order to build like the groundswell and the grassroots chatter. And it was really kind of an early form of social media. But I think the story Neil's referring to is, I was a big fan of Gwen Stefani, of No Doubt, and of Shirley Manson, who's the lead singer for Garbage. This was really the first time there were female lead singers in these rock bands. Like there had been solo singers, but really the first time girls were fronting true rock bands. And so I decided that I thought Shirley Manson was so cool. And if you don't know who she is, go look her up. She is cool. And their songs are amazing. And I had read in a magazine, an actual paper magazine, that they were recording their next album in Minneapolis. So I went to the library, I got out the Minneapolis phone book. You guys might not even know what a phone book is, but it's like a book of listings. And I looked up in the yellow pages, which is where all the advertising was, all of the recording studios in Minneapolis. And I just started calling all of them until I got the one where Shirley was recording with her band Garbage. And then I convinced them to get her on the phone. And then I convinced her to wear my makeup on her next tour. And that was kind of the start of the whole thing. So I think the moral of that story is really about how can you be as resourceful as possible to achieve your goals. And I think it's really important when you're starting out that you show people how to be, how you can take things from A to B and C and D and beyond. So
life as an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
Everything is possible. And there's never any doubt in your mind that it's going to get done. You just
it's got to get done, and it may not be the way you think it's going to get done, but there's always a way.
Absolutely. I want to ask a couple more questions, and then I want to open up to everyone else. The name itself. Talk about where did the name Urban Decay come about?
Yeah, the name's pretty interesting. No one would have expected it. It's still pretty edgy for a makeup brand. But we knew we wanted it to be urban something because we felt like that would be the antithesis to all the sugary sweet makeup that was out there at the time. And Sandy's husband at the time, he was this total computer nerd, like the pocket protector, the whole thing. And he was like, call it Urban Decay. And at first I was kind of like, ooh, that's pretty rough. But then I remember I was, I think it was in New York, and I remember like looking at a crumbly brick wall and a rusting fire escape and thinking to myself, well, that's kind of falling apart, but it's really like crazy beautiful at the same time. And it's not about it being perfect beautiful. It's about what's deeper inside, and how do you look beyond the surface to see what's beautiful. And so I thought that's when it hit me, like, this is really the perfect name. We don't need to soften this. This is what it needs, and it rolls off the tongue. And so that's really how the name came about. Was Len kind of threw it out there, and I mulled it over, and everyone loved it. And I was really the one who was hesitant, like, is this going to be something we can market, right? And then the more I thought about it a little more deeply, it became apparent we could. So
I want to talk about the turning point for the business. And there are a couple stories I know you told when you were last here at UNT, and then I've listened to your speeches. Certainly the naked palette being one of them, and then
right.
the packaging that you did for some of your products. Would you tell us about what a turning point was where you saw, well, wow, I'm so glad I dove into this business, and kind of help thrust you forward?
Yeah, I think one of the big turning points was, we'd had a lot of makeup out there, but makeup is, shade specific. What works on one person doesn't work on another. And I think one of the big turning points in the business that wasn't the naked palette was this product we made called Eyeshadow Primer Potion. And it was a primer, and I always, I always wanted my eyeshadow to last longer. And so this was really, not a lot of brands were talking about primers to keep makeup on longer. And I was really obsessed with long-lasting makeup. I was like, I'm busy. I start in the morning. I work all day. I like to go out at night, and I just want my makeup to last. So this was kind of a passion project for me. But it turned out it was really amazing because it was what we could call a star product, right? Something we could get behind, talk about all the time. People needed every time they did their makeup. And it didn't matter, whether you had large eyelids or small eyelids, or you were tan or fair or dark, it didn't matter. It was something that every woman could use and would benefit, and she would benefit from it, right? It was noticeable results. So we really got behind that star product. And that was an example of kind of connecting all the dots, where we didn't have money to like tool and create our own custom package. And I remember having seen this really cheesy genie bottle package with like kind of a junky vendor. Like most of his stuff looked like drugstore stuff. And I remember seeing it and going, it's so cheesy, it's good, right? And just taking that package and saying, it looks like a genie bottle, let's call it a potion. So then the name came out of the cheesy package. And then that ended up spinning out into, so then it was successful because we were like, then the marketing message was, there's a genie in this bottle and she grants you 3 wishes, which was more vibrant color, longer lasting eyeshadow, and no creasing, right? So genie in the bottle. And so the marketing all worked. And then that was really the first time YouTube and social media came into play with a product for us, where it was a weirdly shaped bottle. It had this weird foot on it and people couldn't get all the product out. And so there was this whole like conspiracy theory that we were putting it in this bottle so that people would have to buy another one. They couldn't get all the product out. And so there was chatter about that. And then people were cutting it open with a Dremel. There were how-to videos. It was like the first how-to video on YouTube to like cut open this thing with a Dremel to get the potion out. And it was really about learning to take that and leverage it into a great customer experience. We hear you. We want you to get all the product out. We really, so we're going to change the package. And now it's in a little tube, but it's more convenient. But it's about taking a negative. It was already a star product. We had a negative with the packaging, and then we were able to spin that into a positive. So kind of full circle on that.
Love that story. It shows that, once again, how can you take a product and fulfill your dream by using what's already there out for you, and then using the medium and how people are responding to it to turn it into a positive message in some way that kind of gets the product out there. Which is, again, I guess you could have spent months or years trying to figure that out, and it just happened.
Yep.
I mean, as you kind of look at where you are since that moment, I mean, what's standing out in your mind with your business and how it's grown? Are you excited, surprised? What do you see about what keeps you? I'll ask you even more pointedly. What gets you up every morning? Entrepreneurship is hard. I'm sure there are moments in every day where you're probably like, what the heck am I going to do? Talk about what motivates you every day and what drives you forward.
Well, entrepreneurship is hard, but at the end of the day, you're working for yourself, and everything you do is for yourself or your employees, right? I think actually what's been harder for me is to be owned by a bigger company, where there's more red tape, there's more layers, there's more bureaucracy. And I feel like my job, what gets me up every day, is to make sure people don't get caught up in that and that they stay focused on the mission and of, empowering people through makeup. And sometimes that ends up being really hard, and I think being an entrepreneur means you're adaptable. And so I've tried to be adaptable through that. I still love working with the product development teams and giving them guidance on product, because that's passion for me, the creativity part. But I think that's really what my goal is, to make sure that the brand stays authentic and on its mission. One of the things I love the most about now is the worldwide distribution. I mean, before COVID, it was really amazing to be able to travel to all these incredible countries and see this like vision resonate with people around the world. I think that was really fulfilling, super cool to do that. And to know that I created a business, or helped create a business that, people, they make good money, they're fulfilled creatively, and they, bought a house and raised a family. And so enabling people to have a great life and a great career has also been really super fulfilling.
That's wonderful. That's a great feeling. Do you notice your product wherever you are? Do you go up to people and say, "Hey, I love that lipstick, love that eyeshadow"?
Yeah, you know what? It's not the same as fashion, where you've got the brand, and a lot of times there's dupes of your own product, but it's more. So that's what's really important in beauty, is the branding is so important, because it's about people connecting with your brand, because they do have choices. So it's about the formulas, And, you know, it's always obviously about shade and creativity, but it's also about the formulas and about what the brand stands for.
Excellent, thanks. Well, I'll pause there and open it up to questions. If you have a question, just kind of raise your hand, introduce yourself with your name, your major, and ask your question, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. Who's up? Right.
Hopefully there's questions. Sometimes there's silence.
Hello.
Hi.
So my name is Mika. I'm 19 years old. My major is theater and performing arts, and I have a minor in political science.
Awesome.
So I had a question about, like, what are your tips for networking? Because I know networking is really important when you're trying to, like, reach your goal.
I do think networking is important. And I think it's one of the things I talked about before. I think you have to network both up and down in your, not down, but you have to network sort of like as a fan all around you. Like, there may be people who are in a higher position than you, wherever you're working, people equal to you or, you know, on a rung a little bit below, and you've got to work with everybody. And you never know where that person's going to lead you. So I think it's like Neil was saying, like, don't burn any bridges, and look for opportunities to go to events, to network. I mean, I know that's really hard right now to do it in real life, but even virtually, I've met some incredible people in the last 6 months, just by saying yes to opportunities that I might not normally say yes to. I know we all have Zoom fatigue, but I think it's pretty cool to get out there and, you know, and try to meet people through webinars or whatever it is. I'm sure there's plenty within the theater space.
Yes.
But that's what I would do. And you never know where that next connection is going to come from.
Thank you. I also have one last question before someone else. Okay. What are some rules that you have for yourself in terms of discipline or continuing to pursue your business?
Well, rules I have for myself in terms of discipline are, I try to do something good for my body every day, because I have a yoga teacher, and he always says, you know, you just have to be grateful for your health, because with your health, anything is possible. And so I think I always think that's number one, right? But you can't really take care of other people or your business or anything else until you're in a good spot. So whether it's yoga or meditation or whatever it is that you need to keep yourself on track and keep yourself good, you got to do that. You can't skip it. You got to make time for it. And you know, it's not all about indulging yourself. It's really about, you can't be good to the world until you're good to yourself. So that's my biggest piece of discipline that I do.
Thank you.
Great, good questions. Who's next? We have a question in chat here.
I see the chat. Majoring in journalism. Can everyone see it, or should I read it?
Oh yeah, go ahead and read it.
Okay. Hi, I'm unable to use my mic right now, but I'm a senior majoring in journalism, media, and print, and psychology. It seems that you started your brand using PR boxes by sending the makeup and cash to people. How have you seen this relationship between brands and influencers grow, and where do you see it going? Okay, so yes, basically those were early days influencers that did not have a social media following. That's what that was. And we were one of the first brands to embrace social media, because we all have always seen the value of that. I remember my business partner at the time, we hired our first person to be on Facebook, and what was called MySpace. Was old, but you know, we just kind of like dabbled in that, and I was like, we need to hire a full-time person for this, and he just couldn't believe that that was a necessary role. But everyone quickly came to see how important it was. And now it's interesting because social media and influencer management drives the bulk of our online business. It even drives a lot of our business at the store level. So I do think it's important. In the early days, the Wild West days of, you know, Instagram influencers and YouTube influencers, it was more about relationships And now, because it's become more of a business, it's really now about the analytics and which influencers are going to work for your brand. So it's become, you know, less personal, more corporate. I think the good news, bad news on that is you were able to get some incredible deals in terms of influence to people's audiences through favors and friendships and working people, basically doing the PR thing. And you also got ripped off, right? If you really wanted to work with someone, there was no standard fee. And now the fees are a little more standardized in terms of social media. So I just continue to answer your question about where do I see it going. I actually see it just becoming more like a business where it's less the Wild West and more of this is just how it works. There's analytics, there's data, you analyze it, you make your marketing plan, you pay market rate, and you have a business transaction. There's good and bad to that. It's kind of sad and kind of good at the same time. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, thank you. Did you say analytics? I mean, quite honestly, I think there's another conversation we can have with you about that and the importance of how social media has grown from, someone with that video trying to cut open your bottle, your genie bottle, right, to now using the analytics to figure out how best to use influencers. And do you use it for messaging as well, or is it more just, I mean, how are you using social media to drive product? And
well, I can answer that in two ways. I personally would take the temperature and not use so much gap analysis and market data, because I like to feel what I feel about the product and try to communicate that. But as a business grows, it becomes harder, and the marketing teams are responsible for delivering a certain result, and therefore they do rely on lots of market data and lots of gap analysis to decide what the next products should be. It's a little bit of a sad thing, but it's more of a sure thing from a business standpoint. But as an entrepreneur, I would tell you, if you're jumping into any business, I think the joy of it is the little bit of the flying by the seat of your pants that you can't really get in so much a corporate environment. So there's good and bad to both. I think some of the richest stuff comes out of like super like just pie in the sky creativity, no limits, thinking outside the box. But these days, everything, the digital world, it's so expensive that it needs to be tempered with the analytics. So.
Thank you. Who else has a question?
I do. Hi, my name is Kira Gerner.
Hi, Kira.
I'm an advertising major, and I have a minor in music and history. And I was wondering what your like daily routine is like as the founder. Like, do you have a specific department that you work in every day, or like what is your like workload now? Because you mentioned earlier that when you were first starting, that obviously you did a lot of stuff yourself, like sending the boxes and stuff. So now that you have like people working for you, what do you like do as your like work?
As my work? Yeah. What I do as my work is I still advise on the product. So I really help them figure out, like, is this really the right product? Is this Urban Decay? A lot of my job revolves around trying to keep the brand on track. And a lot of strategy work. So, what should we be doing? Collaborative ideas. We have a collaboration coming up next year that I was really passionate about, and I go in and sell those with the person we're collaborating with. So like, I can't tell you which one this is, but last year we did Game of Thrones, for example. So that's me working with the team at HBO to make sure they want to know that whatever brand they're partnering with is going to really embody the collaboration. So I work a lot on these collaborations, and the one coming up is with a really interesting artist. So I think you guys will be.
What was that name again?
Yeah, good try. Good try. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Also,
I also do a lot of like team building stuff.
Okay.
Like that's really important. So as new people come into the company, I do spend a lot of time working with the teams, like the sales team, and I'll have an event with them. Now they're Zoom events. And just make sure if anyone has any questions about the history of the brand or anything else that they can ask me, they can feel part of it. So it's really about making sure people really feel like part of we call it the UD fam. So I want people to still feel like they're part of the family.
I know Elia Maria has a question. How big is your company now, Wendy?
There's probably like 200 people in the office here in California, and then there's people worldwide, and it's in 60 countries. So it's pretty big.
Go ahead, Elia.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Celia Maria and my major is graphic design.
Oh, great.
Yes, and what will be the best way to approach a brand for collaboration?
So how would we approach a brand for collaboration?
Yes.
Sometimes they approach us, sometimes we approach them. One of the ways it works, especially with like movies, is the studios have people, and so it goes back to networking, right? So if I know someone at the studio who's in charge of developing, their different titles, they'll call us first before they call Mac, right? They like, oh, we love working with the Urban Decay team, So you do have that relationship piece. And then there's also properties that you or artists you want to work with, and you just need to reach out to their management. Depending on how big they are, if they're represented, you're obviously going to be working through managers. Most of the time it doesn't happen one-on-one with the artist, but at the end you do either have to sell, you have to meet that artist and work with them, and they need to decide if they can represent your brand. So that's a lot of times how it works.
Also, I have another question.
Oh, yeah.
What was your source of motivation?
I think my source of motivation down deep were two things. I think number one, I always wanted to make things. When I was a kid, I always tell this story about like I would make these like horrible, ugly necklaces out of yarn and straws, and like I was like, wouldn't someone want to buy this? I remember telling my mom, she's like, no, that's awful. But I just always wanted to make things. They weren't successful at the beginning, but hopefully my taste level improved. The other thing was I learned about a really important American feminist named Gloria Steinem and what she stood for in terms of equality for women. And so it was a big motivation for me to be successful as a woman, and to forge my own path and be my own boss.
I love that. Well, you talk about that success and that driving force in so many of your speeches.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've not talked about really before was, I grew up Catholic, and I wanted to be on the stage. I wanted to be the altar boy. Like I wanted to like have the robe and like be front and center. And I was told no. I know girls can do it now, but like when I was a kid, it was only boys, and I didn't understand why it could be only boys. That really, really bothered me from the time I was a pretty young kid. Like I don't understand why the boys get to do that and I don't, And I wanted to take metal shop in junior high, and they were like, no, that's just for the boys. And I'm like, yeah, but I can make stuff. And they didn't really, nope, that's just for the boys. So I always never liked that just for the boys thing. So.
That's a good motivating force for any number of things, right? You mentioned constantly in some of the conversations about constantly evolving. I mean, where's the beauty market going now? I mean, where do you take Urban Decay now in terms of what's your vision of where it is and what the industry is nowadays?
Yeah, so I think the thing with the beauty industry is, at least from my perspective, is it's always about creating like surprise and for your customers, right? They always need to be like, wow, that's so cool, or that's different. And so that's where the constant evolution idea comes into play. And I remember when I started Urban Decay, seeing fashion brands that were like flavor of the month, and then all of a sudden they were like nothing. And I remember thinking, how can I avoid that? And the only way to avoid it is with, to me, for a brand, is this idea of constant reinvention and evolution. So you stay true to who you are in your DNA, right? We're always going to be that sort of rebellious, different point of view, beauty with an edge brand. But how does that get interpreted in 2020 versus how it was interpreted in 2000? So 20 years earlier, it's very different. Musical influencers are different. We're living through a completely different time. So it's all about that constant evolution. So we've been through a lot of different iterations. And I also think that brands, they're important and precious, but you can also try little experiments with them, and that's okay too. So to see kind of where you should go.
I would venture to say that this is a period of innovation, and how has the last 8 months been for you in the business? I mean, how would you characterize that?
Well, I just want to, it's a little bit of a like hallelujah moment for me, because, I talk about sometimes it's hard being part of a big conglomerate. And one of the things I remember in 2014, early 2014, they had just bought the business and they wanted us to open a bunch of retail stores. And I said to them, I think this is a really bad idea. I don't think we should have retail stores, but Mac, our biggest competitor, had a lot of retail stores. And they were like, we got to do what Mac does. And I'm like, we don't. We actually should spend a lot of money building our, UrbanDecay.com store. Like, wouldn't that be great? And I got a lot of flack for that. And they spent a lot of money opening a few stores. And it was only because I really impeded the process, got yelled at for it, actually, that we didn't have more stores. And thank God. And now they're like, you know what we need? We need a great website. And I'm like, okay, good. So, so I feel like 2020's it's been a tough year in terms of sales. People aren't wearing as much makeup. So we're not, the whole industry's down. The last 4 months have been better for us. I mean, we're still down, but we're doing better than the makeup market. But no one's leaving their house, so they're not using up their eyeshadow palettes, and they're definitely not wearing lipstick because they probably have a mask on. So it's not been an easy, but I feel like it's helped reprioritize what's important. Hey, let's really build a relationship with our customer online. That's where she's shopping. And it's really helped the people I need to convince at L'Oreal corporate that that's an important goal. So I view it as highs and lows.
Other questions?
Okay. As you created this startup makeup company, when did you realize I made it? And where was your company at the time? I would tell you, it was probably 2010. I'd probably been at this a long time, like 15 years at that point. And it was a couple of things. We had launched the Naked palette that year, which was a big success. And I remember it was the weirdest thing. I had this conversation with my business partner, and he said, do you think we should make the Naked palette a permanent item or just an in and out, seasonal thing? And I looking back, it's like, I can't even believe we had that conversation, right? It's like the things that happen in the moment. So that was one of them when we had a big success with that. The other one was a collaboration with Allison. We did a collaboration with Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland with that movie. And I remember, having Disney come to us and say, hey, do you want to do Alice in Wonderland? And I was like, yes. And they were like, Tim Burton's directing. And I was like, yes, yes. It just, what to me was a fit with our customer and our sort of brand. It just made sense. The colors, just a little bit oddballness. And then Tim Burton's sort of darker, more dangerous vision was just to me, it was like the perfect initial collaboration. And I even loved getting through it. Disney was producing the film, but we had done one of the very first for this pop-up palettes where you open up the lid and there's a little pop-up scene. And we had the caterpillar on the mushroom smoking the hookah pipe, right? And Disney was like, oh no, he can't be smoking. And we were like, but that's what he does. He smokes the hookah pipe. And we were super passionate about it, even though I was saying no smoking earlier. Caterpillars I'm good with. And so actually Tim Burton got involved himself and like overrode Disney and said, they get the hookah pipe. So that was pretty cool. Little inside story. But the point of this was, this is the first time that anyone had ever really done a big collaboration like this with a movie. So we had the cutest displays all built and ready to go because it actually looked like a book, like the Alice in Wonderland book, the palette from the side. And so we built these little mini bookshelves, like old English bookshelves to go on our displays at Sephora. And this is before anyone had like embargo dates and you can't sell before this date. I mean, it was like a whole new world. So before the merchandising could even get put out the display, all the palettes got sold from the back room. So we had like built all those for no reason, but it was really an interesting case study in how to move forward with these collaborations, these like really amazing drops that would generate a ton of interest. And so that was really one of the moments when I realized we had made it, because we had this gigantic hit and we sold through it before we could even put the displays out.
We got one more question there, Wendy, in the chat area, and then
I see it.
We'll wrap up.
Yep. For young entrepreneurs, what is the importance of creating a financial plan to start any business? And how was that experience for you starting out? How did you finance the first production you ran? So I always tell people when they're like, is there any advice, anything you do differently? And I always say, I would definitely have better, like a CFO type person at your side from the beginning. Most of us get into this field, into the makeup field or any creative field, because we're passionate about what we do. We're creative people. But the fact is, if you want to keep doing that, it's probably a business. And in order to run a business, it has to be healthy financially. And so I would definitely say, pay as much attention as you can, or get someone by your side to pay as much attention as you can to the finance and operations piece, so that you have a smooth back end. You're being responsible financially with your decisions, and you can keep creating and keep doing what you're doing. That is the engine that allows you to do what you want to do.
I want to wrap up on this last question, Wendy. This is a tricky one. If you could go back knowing what you know now and give yourself some advice as you have our students today, what would you tell them?
Well, I would probably tell them to second guess yourself less. Get yourself a financial partner. I ended up marrying a CFO, so I would just grab him and let him, side by side be your partner. And just remember that, and I said this at my talk when I was there last October, was partnership is so important in everything you do. Like right now you're a student and it's all about you, and it should be all about you and figuring out what you need to get to that next, either a job or starting a business or whatever creative career endeavor, whatever it is you want to do. It should be about you, and you should be focused on your major and getting great grades and all of that. But once you get out into the world, whether it's, a life partner, a business partner, you join a company, whatever it is, everything you do, it's going to be amplified by great partnership. And great partnership is all about finding those win-wins together. And so that's really what I encourage you to do. And, someone asked the question about networking. That's really what networking is about. It's really about how do two people come together and create something bigger than the two separate pieces themselves? Like, how do you help each other and everyone gets something out of it? It's not transactional. Partnership is not transactional. It is for the long haul. And it's really about finding that magic secret sauce, and it's about trust. And when you find those great relationships, you've got to nurture them. I have great relationships. The way we built Urban Decay was building great relationships with our merchants at Sephora. and having ultimate trust with each other that we were looking out for them and they were looking out for us.
That's right on time, Wendy.
Oh, good.
Perfect.
I'm glad.
That was perfect. We've learned a lot today about relationships, about not second guessing ourselves, about the power of partnerships and relationships, about being creative and challenging our own inner doubts to push the edge. And I think, Wendy, you kind of share that each day is important to kind of respect each other and bring value to each other. And I particularly appreciate what you're doing, folks, at this time in this Zoom world of making your new employees feel like they're part of that team and building the team through that way. So lots of creative tips and advice. And we just appreciate you spending some time with us and our students. We know there are any number of things you could be doing right now, but we appreciate you spending some time with us. So
well, I am super honored that you asked me. It's so great to be able to talk to all the UNT students, and it was magical to come back last year, and hope I can do this in person with you guys next year.
We're counting on it.
Because then we can have drinks and not just like electrolytes, right?
It looks like seaweed or something.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's an electrolyte drink. Just trying to stay hydrated. It's really windy and dry and smoky here, so.
Yeah. Well, I'll toss it back to Trent and Karina. Once again, Wendy, always good to see you.
It was great to see you, Neil.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Neil, and thank you again to Wendy. This was awesome and excellent, as always. These will be recorded, so if you want to come back and access this later, we encourage it. And we couldn't do this without the help of awesome alumni like Wendy and our board of advisors, education committee as well. So thank you all for coming. Have an awesome night, and go Mean Green. We'll see you later.
Yeah, go Mean Green. Thank you guys.
Thank you,
Trent.
Wendy.
Thanks, Andrea.
Good to
Thanks for
see
having
you.
me.